Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new year. I'm so glad that you stuck with me and you're able to make it this afternoon. I didn't give you much notice to know a little bit about my next guest, but let me start today by saying a couple of new things about this show. Number one, I've got incredible sponsors, as you already know. There are some new opportunities for the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on anything else other than YouTube, please do me a favor and go to the link below, youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. Once you get there, hit the subscribe link and you'll see a little bell next to it. If you hit the bell, you'll be notified about every new show that I have coming up. And you can also go through the archives there if you've subscribed and see the 220 some episodes that I've had in the past. You'll be notified about new guests that I have. A week from today, I've got Dale Bosio from Missing Persons, and she's had her name in lights initially from the Frank Zappa group. So that'll be cool. I've also got Mark Powers and Rob Winia from Floater and the Igniter podcast coming up. Lots and lots of great guests. And they would not be here if it weren't for these sponsors. So I want to thank my sponsors here, Rhythm Traders in Portland, Oregon. They are the greatest drum shop in the Northwest. They've been around for over 30 years and are willing to give you a 10% discount if you go in and let them know that All Access Live sent you. They've got not only a bunch of equipment, but they do lessons and repairs as well, as do my next guest, 5-Star Guitars. 5starguitars.com/allaccesslive will get you 15% off everything you see if you use the promo code of allaccess15. So go down, check out all the gear that they have. They've got fantastic repairs, lessons by pros like Jennifer Batten, who has her newest upcoming Guitar Cloud Symposium. You can go and check that out at guitarcloudsymposium.com. Jennifer, you may know from her days with Jeff Beck and Michael Jackson, but she also has a slew of incredible, influential guitarists that have been on each of her symposiums. Everybody from Steve Vai and Steve Lukather to Eric Johnson, I believe, is coming up as well. So go check out guitarcloudsymposium.com and get some lessons from 5-Star Guitars so you can learn how to be a rock star like her. Speaking of rock stars, my next guest has been the director and founder of Ideahatch. And if you are a fan of science, or you were a kid and science intimidated you, there's an opportunity for your kids to check this out. I'm going to read you just a little bit of information about Hatch on the site. It says, sparking curiosity, engaging the imagination, and empowering problem solving, bringing interactive STEAM activity stations to schools, libraries, and communities around Puget Sound, empowering youth to understand and advocate for our Earth, and committed to IDEA, the acronym, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. All things that make science and discovery cool. So to talk more about that and to let you know that not only is my guest amazing and inspiring, but she's my cousin. So with no further ado, let me welcome Heidi Larsen. How are you, hon?
Hey, I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Oh, look at you're in the Olympic National Forest. You've got,
Yes.
and you've got the coolest house. Besides having my father's print right above your head and
Yeah.
this gold plant, I was hoping, yeah, if you pan around and we check out on the other side of you, you've got a full-sized tree growing through the middle of your house.
Ooh, we have a tree in our house.
It's a real tree house. Everybody that wanted one of those when they were younger, you've actually got
Yeah.
it. Tell me the story about the tree.
Um, the fellow who this was a cabin that burned down, and all they saved was this big piece of wood, which was the big mantle over the fireplace. And as they were building it with the insurance money they got, a neighbor had cut down that big tree and just let it roll down into the gully close to the water. And David, who built this house, said, we just can't let that rot and go to waste. So it's not a live tree, but he dragged it up here. I don't know how, and somehow built the house around it. So the branches go straight into the ceiling. And
That's
yeah,
so good. When you first found that house, did you see the tree and think, okay, this is for us? This has to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of like all the handles on the cabinets in the kitchens have rare coins on them, and there's like etchings and all the glass, and it's just a magical place. And it's been hard to leave. I mean, we just rent, we don't own,
Okay.
but we can't leave.
Yeah.
Ever find a place of our own because it's right on the water. It's in an old forest. It's magical. So until they kick us out, we are here.
Yeah, well, this is a good time. You can be the squatters have all the rights right now, right? So I've been there. I love it so much. Not only the house, but the area is a lot like the area. There's a sort of protected forest back in my neighborhood that I try to get to every day with my pug, and I do a little live Facebook stream that's my 60 seconds of serenity. And if I can only get back there for a little bit, it centers me. If I had what you have right out my back door, I don't know that I'd ever go inside unless you have torrential rain pour and you're sick of that mold, but it's beautiful. I love it.
I had a conversation with a young relative just yesterday, and I said that before that I used to be depressed a lot, and then when I started living out in the middle of nature, my baseline shifted. And that was like 25 years ago, and just am naturally much buoyant now. And I said, maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm a throwback thousands of years ago to the hunter-gatherers, I guess millions of years ago, that I have to be around nature to live alongside other species, to be reminded, I'm not just living in the human-made world, but we're living together and we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Me and billions of other species on this planet. And I call her my niece, but she's not exactly my niece. Luca said, maybe lots of people have that problem, and they're living in cities and they haven't even discovered yet that they're so depressed because they're not in touch with nature, and they're missing it. So maybe.
For me, I feel fortunate that we've got the ocean close by and the forest, but you're even closer. You're right there next to the sound, because the water does something for me. I was there. I jumped in the ocean a couple of days ago as my sort of my plunge to begin 22, and
Did you?
I did. My girlfriend and I went out to Rockaway Beach, and
Wow.
it was there were a bunch of reasons behind flushing the past, and sort of bringing in the new, and unfortunately, she's got a bad cold now, but I feel great, and I don't know if that was that might have been those toxins coming out of her. There's a lot of stuff to get rid of, but as like Caleb, you met, my older son has, he really talks about the seasonal affective disorder. Like being stuck in rainy times. He felt like going to California, getting around the sun was, his only option for happiness. And then we went to LA, San Diego last week, and it was torrential rain, right? So he said, maybe I just have to learn how to discover happiness wherever I am. Sounds easy, but, I don't know about vitamin D and the sad lights or anything like that. But I do know for me, when I'm in the forest and when I'm near the ocean, I could listen to the ocean all day, and it brings me that kind of, inner sort of energy that the sun might, but that's just me. And I couldn't wait to get out of the forest when I was a teenager, right? I couldn't, I took it for granted,
We were just talking about that before the program started. We were just talking about you and when you were 15 and then you got shuttled off from a town, a small city, to living kind of deep in the forest.
Yeah. I was miserable. And, it's funny because most of the people that I went to school with then have all moved out into that area. They've all built cabins on the woods. And Bozeman is a different town now than it was. But that area, Bear Canyon, was special because, as you know, like our grandfather built it, right? And I have a lot of great memories visiting there. Not so much living there. Living there was really tough because
Yeah.
you're a mile away from even a road, right? And then
And that,
so much snow, and
oh,
in these days it'd be difficult because there's really there's no technology. You're not getting good internet out there,
yeah.
or but then I think I wish that I had had some wisdom and perspective because I went and worked in Yellowstone for a summer, and that changed everything for me too. But I wanted to go off to the city and be a rock star,
Right.
and after having lived in the city for a while and pretending to be a rock star, I would give anything, to have that respite. But it's the grass is greener for a lot of people, and
Well,
it'd be nice
it's
to have.
also the age you're at. I mean, if you're a teenager and you are, I mean, everything in you when you're a teenager is like be together with other people, be making, be creating, be feeding off the energy of the city life. And when you're, past a certain age, you're like, I need to be back in nature and take a deep breath and just, so it depends a lot on what phase of life you're in, I think.
Yeah, well, this is a good chapter. I'm excited to be going into this one. Actually, you talked about that energy and that age. Um, I would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about the inspiration that brought you to Ideahatch. Because when you started posting about it the last couple of years, I got
Mhm.
so excited. And I should preface it by saying, when I was younger and around the age of the kids that you work with in the program, science of all kinds was really not only intimidating to me, but it sounded boring until I found places like the Seattle Science Center. That
Mm,
blew my mind.
yeah.
Everything about it, the space aspect and the biological aspect, and dinosaurs and the tactical stuff of being able to get things in your hands and create all those sort of idea spawning opportunities. And that kind of seems like you're taking that concept to these school in a much smaller scale where it's accessible to everybody. Was that maybe some of the inspiration that you got for Hatch?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, my own experience, I mean, as you know, I left home when I was really young. I was bored, like a lot of kids are in school, couldn't wait to leave. Sounds like
Yeah,
you in the
yeah,
woods. Um, yeah, completely bored, completely shut down. But outside of school, and especially me and you and all kids when they're younger are just we are born curious. We were born you look at a toddler in the high chair who like drops the spoon or spills over. That's a science experiment. It's like what happens if wow, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I throw this food on the wall? What happens then? No, we are born doing science experiments. And somehow the school system tends to just shut that down because we're not discovering for ourselves. It's an agenda already set. Here's the lesson plan. Here's the goal. Do it until this happens. Da da da. What have we learned today? I mean, there's no spark of adventure of finding out something new for yourself. But studies have shown that if kids are told something, like here's an example. I was a preschool teacher for many years. So um, a preschooler is blowing bubbles. And if I go over to that kid and say, did you know, try blowing bubbles out of this shape and this shape. Do you know that all bubbles are the same regardless of the shape you're blowing it through? We'll be like, oh, okay. Studies show that child will not pursue any more. Their interest has stopped. But if I go over and say, like, whoa, you are blowing bubbles. What? Okay, you're trying that one? Oh, whoa, what just happened there? And then lead them to make their own discovery. Like, wait a minute, is that the same or is that? And then therefore this, therefore, how, why are all bubbles the same? What's even going on there? And I'm not leading them too much. I'm just putting a question, letting them tell me, letting them take the direction. And studies show they will keep that. They will take that idea and pursue it and apply it and keep moving with it the rest of their lives. And that empowerment, I did a big study on resiliency in childhood, kids who go through terrible things. what makes the kids who are resilient resilient. And one of the things that surprised me is it doesn't take much. It takes one person in their life, could be a teacher, could be a distant relative they've only seen a few times, that listens to them, that listens to them as they talk about what's going on in their life, their explorations, what they're discovering, to get them through their childhood. It really doesn't take much. So where am I going with all this?
Well, I was going to ask you, was
Yeah.
there one in your life? Do you have that one person that changed things for you?
No, and I think that's what I'm trying to recreate. I'm trying to be what I missed.
Gotcha.
And I didn't have any of those science classes just like you. And I have no special education in science. I have a master in library science, but I'm always curious, and I've worked with kids my whole life.
Yeah.
I always want to ask questions and say, what happens if? Well, what if this happens? I love that feeling of excitement. That's almost like it is tangible when you walk into a room where an Ideahatch program is going on, or like you say, the Seattle Science Center, where people are just going crazy. They're going from station to station, just like having so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And you can feel this level of just excitement and fun and discovery and learning in the air. And I never had that like you. And
Yeah.
and it's our birthright. We were born with it. We
Right.
shouldn't let any classroom take it away from us.
You know, there were a couple of things that you mentioned just about the study that you had mentioned, that it only takes one. And I think we did have that conversation when I was there, that I did have one teacher in particular in high school that inspired me in a way that just actually made me feel human. She treated me like an adult and respected me, and encouraged creativity. She was an English teacher, but it wasn't about English at all. It wasn't about writing or literature. It was more about finding my spark. And I love that you're in that position where you can get to kids early on, through the library programs. I mean, that's where you're working a lot with this program, right? I think a lot less kids these days are going to libraries. I know for me, I spent all day in a library when I was younger, but a lot of that had to do with I could stay in the woods by myself and explore, which was awesome, or, go and check out books. And it's so much more than just finding, doing the Dewey Decimal System and looking at, a book on history. There's a lot that goes on in a library, and a lot of it is what to look for. It's great when communities have something more going on in the libraries. So you've moved around a little bit, and you talked about being a preschool teacher for a while. Do you approach libraries with your concept in mind and say, I would like to bring this to you? Or how does that work to get Ideahatch in-house?
Well, I was a children's librarian for many years, so I kind of know what they're looking for, and I know the best way to approach them. So it was pretty seamless when I left that and started this nonprofit, Ideahatch. It built pretty quickly, making contacts, just cold emails, and sometimes finding someone we knew in common, but then just word of mouth, it spread really quickly. And so about 75% of programs are in libraries, 25% are in classes, a lot of after school STEM nights at schools. So yeah, about 25% in schools. Yeah, what did you ask me? I totally forgot your
Well,
question.
I asked how the program is quote unquote sold. I mean, for lack of a better term, do you approach, say, a community and say, this is what I can provide, this is what I feel like has benefited communities in the past, or do you just provide them the curriculum and say, this is, and they can see the value right away, or do you have to kind of sell yourself on it?
I don't have to sell myself.
Good.
The past number of years, people have been libraries, programs, and schools have been searching for STEM activities. And this is different. So it's not a curriculum. It's pretty much like a mobile children's science museum. So there's just lots of different stations. And then kids just go around whatever stations they want to and interact and play and learn. And it sells itself. My husband Jason, he's an IT person, and he loves making if you go on my website, there's many different program subjects that you can choose from, everything from climate change to myth and magic to music maker to, I mean, so many different programs to choose from. And there's usually one or two kind of wild tech thing that he's created at the center of it. And then many other stations. So it kind of sells itself. Like for music makers, since you're a music person, we had a musical bench, and we have a musical bench. So two or more people sit on this bench and they shake hands, and every connection that they make, it makes music play. But it depends on all sorts of things. How hydrated they are, the size of their bodies. You can move the scales up and down by touching in different ways and different places. It depends on how much surface, how much fat, all these things that the electrical current has to go through. So
But
that's another one for a music maker. He made this thing where kids move and make a kind of sound and light display by their movements on a screen.
So does it use a theremin? Kind of like a theremin for audio, or
no? I love theremins. That's really cool. But no, this is just has sensors.
Okay.
So that when you move your body, you're creating a colored light show, and you can move the pitch and move the tempo and things like that just by your movement.
Oh my gosh.
So for every program, there's really cool things that just kind of sell themselves like that. I think it all started with Planet Earth Science, where he built an augmented reality sandbox. Have you seen those? Like lots of museums have them now, where it's sand, and a projector shining down on the sand. And then there's a projected topographic map. And as you move the sand around, the map changes. So you can make like models of Mount Rainier or Mount Hood, and everywhere you can create rivers coming down. You can hold out your hand and make it rain, and then see where the watersheds would be and see it collect in projected rivers. So he makes some pretty cool stuff, and then I make other stuff around it. And
what a cool creative family you have there. He really is a remarkable guy too. I would imagine that he's probably just off camera right now hearing us talk about him. So I don't want to.
I don't think so.
He's out of here. It's like, all right, leave me. He's brilliant, and it's great that you found a partner, that can share the enthusiasm for creativity. And the interesting thing is about our family, right? We've got a collective group of people in our families that have varying degrees of left brain, right brain use. You in particular, you and your sister and Kima, your mother, very much have a balance, I feel like, of both. I see, the creative and logical side kind of, using both effectively. Paul, your father, brilliant scientist, astrophysicist, right? I mean, he's I don't know his official title, but it's unbelievable the amount of work that he's done in space law, and talking to him excites and inspires my son. Like Caleb is so much into that. To me, I have to take it in doses because it's so over my head that I have to come back every 10 minutes. He's beautiful and brilliant and wonderful, but very much, the logical side of things.
Definitely.
When you get kids in your program, and they vacillate, or they varied in terms of their creative side versus the logical side, you kind of get, it sounds to me like there's an opportunity for both, right? Because there's a tactical thing that they can get a hold of and make sense out of, right. And then yet there's the ability to just be malleable and do something to have an effect that's cool and unique and creative, right?
Right. And make connections to where they live. I mean, well, in that same planet Earth science, there's a opportunity to, touch real dinosaur fossils from around our area. And there's these great maps where you can see where you live, and fossils that are found around there, and then hold fossils that it's like, this came from 20 miles from where I'm standing right now, this fossil, or meteorites. To where you live, and the idea that you could be hiking, and a lot of people hike with magnets. Not a lot of people, some people hike with magnets trailing behind them just to possibly attract meteorites to them. And these things are found all around us, just opening our eyes.
Being able to open your eyes is so key. I'm glad that you mentioned that. uh, Being present in our environment, and maybe that's why things woke up for me, when I've been out and really experiencing the woods.
Yeah.
I took a lot of that stuff for granted. I was so busy and going without smelling the roses. I mean, there's so much beauty by just listening. And um, I would imagine, for the kids that you're working with, life at this time is chaotic and
Yeah.
confusing, and there's so much out there that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's great that you provide this opportunity for them where it doesn't have to make sense either, right? I mean, if they're, there are no right answers or wrong answers.
Right.
You don't have a curriculum that you have to follow that you're getting graded on. Do you see this nonprofit being able to branch out where you could have essentially franchise of your okay, I should back up. When you've got a great idea and you feel like it could benefit people around the world in different communities, the problem is finding someone that has the same vision and the same passion that you might. So have you tried to do that? Have you tried to branch out where you've got other people that take on your...
I mean, that would be wonderful someday. But right now, it's just, I mean, it's breaking even. Um, it's paying me a little, enough to contribute to the bills
Yeah.
of the household. I mean, that's where we're at right now. I would love to. I've applied for a handful of grants and haven't gotten them. So, and that takes a long time to apply for grants. So
Yeah.
anyone listening that has ideas, that wants to be a part of franchising, that knows about a great grant to apply for, please get in touch. So we're kind of stalled out at one level right now, the level of just me, and we need just a little bit more funding, or someone with an idea to contribute. Um, their skills to just kind of bump us up to the next level. And we don't have to get to the next level. We can stay small. There's no, it's not wrong to stay small and local.
No.
But I do feel that because we're mobile, we can get to a lot of places, underserved communities, both rural and urban, where kids don't have the opportunities to hold real fossils or
Right.
meteorites.
Oh
And
yeah.
we take it all to them and set it up. And we do, outside, all kinds of places that we've been, tiny little rural towns, and just, those are my favorite places to go.
I'll bet.
Instead of like some wealthy neighborhood in, you know, Seattle where kids have seen everything and they're like, oh, cool, but
Yeah.
just
It's,
seeing the expression on kids' faces when they're like, wait a minute, this is a real, these are real fossils I'm touching from like millions and millions of years ago, and having, that's priceless. And so I
I,
do think that it's something unique that we offer. There's children's science museums, and there's kind of the classroom and even after school clubs that are more structured and have agendas, and maybe have like regional contests. But we're kind of in our own niche there of traveling to and bringing that experience of discovery. to all kinds of underserved communities.
There are a couple of things I wanted to touch on right there. The first being, you mentioned the small rural communities that you serve that way. When you were a preschool teacher and when you were involved in some of these areas where there were at-risk kids, you dealt a lot with homeless population as well. Something that's close to my heart. I really tried hard to work in the homeless environment here in Portland, and realized how there were so many cards in the deck stacked against that community and that population. The same thing with those small rural towns. The funding's not there to be able to get them access to technology or access to expansive opportunities. I was in Dominican Republic a few years ago. Went over for a gig, and all-inclusive resort when you're at the resort. But there was a really great organization called Pack for a Purpose that friends of mine in that band New Shoes, actually, they everywhere they go, they are involved with this organization where they find those underserved communities and they bring them school supplies and technology stuff. And so we found this place outside of Punta Cana where there was a K through 12 school, dirt floor, no electricity, one room. All those kids that were in that school had like pockets in the different corners of the room, and we brought like things that we take for granted, bundles of ballpoint pens. The kids were crying when you gave them ballpoint pens. They were so excited about the buttons that you could push, and binders. It's the stuff that we definitely take for granted. And you mentioned that those kids too, they appreciate the fossils. But I would imagine that what you bring, they appreciate the energy and the creative sense that you bring in too. That wow, these people believe in us. They, we matter enough to them to be able to have them come out here and bring something to us. What's the catch? I would imagine, right? They're probably thinking, because it's such a challenging environment for them.
Yeah.
So when you mention, it's okay to stay small, there are underserved, underprivileged areas everywhere in our country, everywhere on the planet. We talked about mutual teacher friends that we had, and so many programs are being cut because of funding. I know on the music side, I have a friend that started a nonprofit where they can teach music education, the history of music, instruments, and that kind of thing. But it's helping supplement those schools that have cut music programs, science programs too. I mean, they there's only so much they can do. If there is anyone that sees this, and you've got experience grant writing, or if you don't, but you know somebody that does, definitely reach out. Find a Heidi here. Ideahatchery.org is the link that you see down at the bottom. It's a great site. It's succinct and it tells the story in just a few bullet points, which is nice. You don't have to read an entire manual about what it is you provide. But I would love to see, somebody write the grant that sees the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation say, okay, these are the people that, they are touching kids that need it in our community. And how have you seen the documentary? Or there was a series called Inside Bill's Brain. There were 5 or 6 episodes, and it was a focal series. The focal point was Bill Gates had wanted to get outside of his realm of, hardware and software, and he wanted to change things, like find solutions for water in impoverished areas and areas in Sudan, right? And so in order to do that, sure, he's got money, but you just can't throw money out there and all of a sudden form water. And he had visionaries and inspired, scientists and kids come up with concepts. And he pulled from a series of concepts and ideas and curated a group of specialists, if you will, and then basically gave them grants to say, okay, the winner gets to be my point person to bring water to the Sudan and make this something that can change their world. And it really was about inspiring curiosity and innovation and So all the things you hear about from people like that, the multi billionaires, a lot of times it's negative stuff, but those are game changers. Those are
Yeah.
places, the life that can be changed from someone that doesn't have an agenda is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. And that's really where
Yeah.
you're at. It's one of the reasons I absolutely love you, for that.
Yeah.
How long has Ideahatch been around?
Oh, just about 4 years, 4.5 years,
Okay.
maybe close to 5. But I think that's key what you were saying about not having an agenda. And I think that that's one of the things that is special about Ideahatch programs. There's nothing you have to do. But also, we were talking about libraries. I think that's something unique. I mean, how many places in our community can you go that there's not an agenda, that everyone doesn't have an agenda for you? You walk in the store, they want you to buy, they will have you found everything today, or you walk into a church, be a part of our religion. I mean, it's very, very rare to find a place like libraries. We learn in library school that we find for you whatever you're interested in. It could be, how to hack the military's website. I don't know. It could be something we totally disagree with. It
Right.
doesn't matter. There's no judgment. There's no agenda. We are completely there to give you whatever that you're to help you understand further and research further whatever you're interested in,
It's not
and
necessarily a
without any
server.
judgment.
It's not a service provider. It's not like people come in and say, help me get this, help me.
Mm.
It seems like there's an education process that you're helping them find those things for themselves. There's a therapeutic part of this, right?
Yeah,
Where,
but no judgment. If they
yeah.
what's important to them is coming in out of the rain and falling asleep in a chair,
Mhm.
that's what we want for you.
Wow.
So I think it's rare to find a place these days that doesn't have some agenda for
Yeah.
you, where you're just the only agenda is for you to flourish and follow your heart.
Yeah. Man, that is a rare thing. You mentioned that staying small might be okay, but if there was some funding that just say, you know, Bill and Melinda Gates said, "Oh wow, Ideahatch is exactly the kind of thing that we want to get behind. Here is a 10-year grant for $1 million a year, and what you have to show for it is we want to see engagement. We want to see maybe some numbers. They want to know that the money has gone towards expanding your. You mentioned programs, and I like that because there isn't a curriculum, rather than there are a series of programs, and so. Um, what would you? How do you feel like you could expand if you had that kind of
Oh,
funding?
yeah. So I would put the money. There are three things. The first is that I would hire summer staff, or staff whenever we have a lot of our programs. I'd say 90% of the programs are in the summer, maybe a little less. The rest are through the school, but through the school year. But I'd hire teens and young people that were more diverse, so that kids would see that representation,
Mhm.
see themselves represented in the staff, and closer to their age too. I think that there's a connection there that happens when kids are engaged and co-learning with teens that are not too much older than them. Something special happens there. So I would hire diverse young people, and I would fund. I really want to do more climate change programs. Right now, I just have one, which is on make clean energy, and this is unique too because it's finding a way to have a very hopeful, positive way of engaging with climate change, instead of something we want to run from. Oh no, more bad news. What do I do in the face of it? It's like, this is what we're doing. This is, try out all these new technologies. What are your ideas? We need ideas. We need your ideas. Brainstorm, and we have the giant book of life that you can write all your ideas in, for all our lives to continue on in this planet. And there are so many wonderful, engaging stations that we could build if we had the money. And we've only done the Making Clean Energy one, which has, hydroelectric plants we've already built, and that you have to decide, okay, will water go towards electricity or towards irrigation or towards, salmon habitat, or, uh, windmills, and all sorts of different ways of powering, biomass, coming up with electricity. But with climate change in general, there's so many hopeful, fun, engaging ways that are inspiring. And with climate change, it's so easy to feel like it's so big. The players are so much bigger than me. What can I do? So it's wonderful to have hands-on things
Yeah.
that help us feel like we're all a part of it. And, critical mass means if we all are doing just a little bit, then together great movements happen. Yeah, we are just a drop in the ocean, but that's what oceans are made of,
Right.
drops.
I love that. I think across the board, younger people get intimidated because they don't want to get involved if they feel like their one voice isn't heard. But that one in particular, the climate change program that you have, I love the idea of the water sort of decisions that someone could make. And
Yeah.
from what it sounds like, in that station,
Yeah.
your ideas divert that water into different places to see how the
Yeah.
outcome might change, right? Depending on how much is
Yeah.
provided. Do you go around to different science centers and see what programs are already existing to see if you can kind of generate ideas?
Once in a while, I'd say a couple times a year, maybe we end up in some city, Jason and I, we've never been to, and the first thing we do is go to their science museum. And, of course, so many of the things are very large,
Right.
embedded, things that we couldn't make mobile, but we
Sure.
do. We take pictures, and we have a secret notebook. We're like stealing ideas.
Well, if it's been done before, I mean, there's no point in recreating the wheel. But if you can adapt it for your mobile
Yeah.
station, who does it really well?
Oh, Oh, we were in London and went to the Science Museum in London 3 or 4 years ago. That was amazing. Up in Vancouver, their science museum is really fun. But
Really?
like you said, like Seattle,
Mm,
OMSI,
yeah.
there's
Yeah,
so
I
many.
love OMSI's great for that too, and I'm grateful to have it. I mean,
Mhm.
in Montana, of course, in Bozeman, we have the Museum of the Rockies, and that was so surprising because a lot of it was paleontology. There's a ton of dinosaur
Yeah,
stuff there,
yeah,
and again, take it for granted. You grow up in Bozeman, Montana. If you're not spending time in there to see how they've changed and curated new ideas there,
yeah,
um, I went back a couple years ago, took the kids, and it was amazing. They had so much great technology in there, to sort of attract the eyeballs from the younger kids that might be turned off by static exhibits. A
yeah.
lot of cool musical stuff since Gibson Guitars was from there, right? So they
Oh, I
had
didn't know that.
there's a massive like 30-foot guitar that's laid. You can play it by running up and down the fretboard, and it's
No,
huge. It's really
no.
cool. Yeah, I thought about the bench. That was one thing I was going to ask you about the bench in your music maker program. Um, all of those sounds and that interaction comes from two people on the bench and how they interact with each other. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, two or three.
Okay, so
And
it's not just individual.
no, and it's electrical current, and then a MIDI controller, and a little bit of I can't remember though, it's a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino, a little bit of programming in there. Um, and that is actually not Jason's invention. That can is actually someone made it for the Exploratorium in San Francisco, and you can find directions how to make it. If you can do a little programming and do a little on the Exploratorium website. But oh, that is so much fun. Also because the bench is foldable, so you can take it anywhere. You can take it like to a park and just put out a sign saying, "Make a friend. Sit
Wow.
down here till someone else sits down, and then shake hands."
Okay,
You
so
just have to have one hand touching the little armrest on either side of the bench, and then shake hands with your other hand, and then discover the unique. Every interaction makes unique music, which is cool because everyone's mass and all the different other variables that go into conducting electricity is a little different.
oh
So,
my God,
and
that's everything. Each experience would be completely unique.
yeah,
Now in the day of COVID, I'm sure that challenge is a little more
yeah,
difficult. Like,
yeah,
can't be 6 feet away from someone and not touch and make music
right,
there.
right.
Another detriment to this silly pandemic.
Yeah.
Silly.
And
Uh,
for that one, we also made one of those big, oh, what are they called? They're Blue Men Group, and a lot of them have those, they're, they're like PC pipes, and they're
yeah.
made in all sorts of these big wheeled things you bring in, and then with flip flops, you can
Oh yeah.
create all sorts of music. What else do
The
we have in? We have all kinds of things. DJ, oh, musical marble runs, giant musical marble runs, and
how does
that
that work?
one. Um,
How does that work?
yeah, there's just I'm trying to think of the company. They make big sets that you can have kind of it's similar to xylophone,
Yeah.
but they're with the marble hits, and then you can just construct them on the giant scale. So we have four very big systems already put together on these big pieces of plywood. And then we have lots that are just completely loose so that anyone can create their own or build on to what we've made. And that's a lot. That's a really fun program. And DJ in a box where you can record yourself and then make it slower or faster, make it, you know, uh, change the pitch, and then layer it. So you have like 4 or 5 of those, so you can kind of do different tracks on repeat, kind of like that. But
And like looping segments.
yeah, there's a
Wow.
lot of fun things for that
Some of
program.
the like the real prominent musicians of the world, like Ed Sheeran's going to hear something like that and say, "I want to be part of the idea hatchery."
Yes.
Like,
Hey, Ed.
yeah, yeah. If you're listening, Ed, Grammys were canceled today because of COVID, so you have nothing to do. Go find Heidi and her program, and
Yeah, come see the tree in my house,
oh
and
my,
Uncle Jerry's
yes.
painting, and I'll make you some tea, and
Well,
we'll talk about music.
I love that. I think you and Ed Sheeran would have a lot of fun conversation because before he became this international sort of music mogul, the dude was just, this really down to earth acoustic songwriter, and came up with
Yes.
his innovation. But I like this sort of humility that I sense from him, So,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of that in you and your entire family. That's one of the things that is really exciting to me. You and I didn't get to know each other much when I was younger because I was an asshole. I was envious of. Well,
What?
no,
I
I,
remember you. How old were you when I lived with you
I
at your
was
house?
like, I was probably mentality of two, but I was envious because my mom saw a lot in you and really gravitated towards wanting to be, um, so connected to you. She saw, I think, a lot of herself in you younger, and she
Huh.
may, like my mom, she really just sensed. I think she felt like you could have been the daughter that she never had,
Oh,
and so it was fun for her too. But I was envious, right? When you're
I
that.
didn't know that. Were you envious?
Oh yeah,
I did
absolutely.
not know that. You were your mom was so patient with me and so supportive, but she was also young enough in age. I was a teenager. I was like 14,
Yeah.
15, that we'd just sit on the floor in the kitchen, lean up against the wall, and we'd both smoke and like talk about life.
Right.
So she wasn't like quite an adult. She was more, at least towards me, she was very
Yeah.
patient. And you, oh, I can just close my eyes and see you right now. You are such a beauty and like so heartfelt. Like whatever you did, it was like straight from inside. There wasn't any like masking, any pretending, any, trying to be tough or trying to be disinterested or trying not to. Whatever you felt, you just said. You were out there. And man, you were just ah
That's a
I
beautiful.
see your face right in front of me right now and the way that you looked. And I remember once you even, in the room that I was staying with, you slid a little note. You won't remember this, but you slid a little note under my door that just said, I love you.
Oh my God, that I'm glad to hear that. I
Yeah.
really am.
You thought did you really think you were an asshole? Did
Well,
you really think you were?
uh, the things that I remember about childhood and like the way that I treated my brother, I'm
Mm,
embarrassed by
mm,
the resentful sort of behavior that I had towards you. And
mm,
on the other side of the family, there was also a cousin that came to stay with my mom for a bit, and they rode horses, and they were very close. And I think uh, I was just such an attention seeker. I
mm,
really, I mean, if anybody on the planet came within me and somebody else, maybe a little bit's changed since then, but your observation of me um, with no mask is great, because for me, I think no filter is not always the best practice, right? I mean,
mm,
I wish that I developed a little bit more of a stop and think capability,
mm,
because then that caused me to do some damage control over time. But
mm.
at the end of the day, they were all part of the lessons that I needed to learn, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
You talked about my mom and just how she treated you like one of her,
yeah.
and she was like that with me too. That was a beautiful thing. That there was encouragement no matter what.
Mm,
She believed in me. Both my parents were so supportive in whatever I wanted to do. So
mm,
going after like a music career,
mm.
I would think with my dad as an artist and as a teacher, my mom as a social worker, for them to think, yeah, Kevin's gonna go after a music career. It'd be real easy for a parent to say. Well, you know what my mom did say? She said,
What?
"Stick around," because all my friends went to high school or went to LA the day we graduated
Mm,
and high school, and I was so mad. She said, LA will be there. Stick around and go to school in Bozeman for just a little bit. And I don't think she used the word backup. I think she said, diversify your opportunities and make an opportunity to have an alternate career. If these stars don't align, it was something to that effect, so that it didn't dissuade me from following my passion, but it also made me get a little bit more of a realistic look at other things. And
yeah.
and I'm grateful for that.
She's
So
smart like that. I can see her saying that to you. Um, and even when I lived there, she was really good. I mean, she would ask me questions and had ideas about, what are you interested in? She had ideas that no one had ever mentioned before. She said, I think you have learning disabilities. And she had actually lined up uh, an appointment for me to get tested for learning disabilities, which no one had ever brought up or thought
hmm,
about or and I left before that happened. I think I left. I hitchhiked to Canada or something like that
wow.
before that happened. But I can see her, yeah, she's smart like that.
Do you feel like that observation was valid? Do you feel like
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, later on as an adult, yeah, I definitely feel like I have learning disabilities. Yeah.
I certainly know without having been diagnosed, I'm ADD in spades.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is definitely in the family. I know mom is too.
Mm.
And, there's a history of dyslexia, in our family that really,
Really? I didn't
yeah.
know that because there is on my dad's side, but I didn't know. So I had dyslexia
Okay.
also when I was little. And then I learned that it never really leaves you. You just learn to compensate for it.
Sure. Well, I
Mm.
think a lot of things are like that. I didn't want to out him, but my brother is the one that, was dyslexic. When that diagnosis came about, my mom, as a social worker, was devastated because she felt like, that's going to be such a hard road for him to go down.
Mm.
Society makes it really difficult for folks that have that, challenge. And, he's learned to function and be great, of course, as many have. I mean, there are millions of successful, dyslexics out there.
Mhm.
You do have to just manage, just like ADD, ADHD,
Mhm.
Asperger's, any kind of spectrum, the sort of uh, challenge there. And so, I talk to people about this quite a bit, about recognizing that maybe there's something there that's it's genetic, or there was a disposition there, that there's nothing that you did to bring that about, right? It's not like you did something in your past that brought this about. It's just it was a roll of the dice, and some people are rolled, where they have perfect 20/20 vision, and and they don't have any challenges academically, but socially, there's something there, and being able to work through those things in order to adapt. Those are challenges, right? I mean, just you've got a beautiful gift of. I know that there was a lot of adversity, in your childhood growing up,
Mhm.
and you talked about hitchhiking at 14 and just going around the world. It's amazing. You made the world your own, which is incredible, and courageous. A lot of parents would really have a difficult time imagining their child just saying, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go and and be where I need to be and to get my head right." But not only do you maybe seek to be that person for these kids that have it, they got a bad roll of the dice.
Mhm.
We talked about Shelton, I think, and some of the other towns, the smaller towns in Washington, that
Mhm.
growing up, Native American reservations where, there's already maybe a pre-existing, epidemic of drug and alcohol issues on in that area in the community, and funding is not there for certain parts of
Mhm.
their adaptation, and you bringing that in, to me, it seems not just altruistic. I mean, it really seems like you want to be there to give them some hope and some encouragement. For like, it doesn't seem like you're out there trying to save the world with them. You're trying to encourage, to help them find those things for themselves.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of times that's just listening to them. Sometimes it's amazing how little kids are listened to. Young people, they're always being told what to do by the teachers and and it's amazing how shocking it is for them to have someone just say like, wow, what did you just tell me what just happened here? At this station, what did you just discover? What? And like, oh, I want to make one. Show me how to make what you just made. And you can see the transformation and the empowerment and no one asks them to teach them things. No one asks. So that's empowering in itself. But talking about going, you mentioned like to Native American communities. And I think that that's been to a number and had some grants written for me to come to schools on reservations and be involved in different ways. And that's a very unique experience because a lot of times on paper, it looks really poor and really um, a lot of difficulties, but then you get there, and that's not the way that's not the way it's set up, so that like I've gone to schools that on paper looks like everyone is in the free lunch program and
Yeah.
everyone is all that, and yet there's a feeling of richness because there's so much giving, because you know this tribal council or that tribal council gives all these materials or gives all this food or gives all this art supplies, and none of that shows up on paper.
Okay.
So it's a different way of providing a rich experience. It's also a different way of sharing. Like I used to do visiting story times before I was doing STEM programs, and I go to like 27 different communities on rotation doing story times. But on reservations, it was different. I wouldn't come in and do my fun story times. We all sing, we all do craft, we all tell, it would be like, now what do you have to share with me? What can I learn from you? So a lot more of it's a different model.
And connected. I'm glad you brought up the story time, by the way, because I don't know another person on the planet that tells a story the way you do.
Oh,
It's amazing to me. And there were some mannerisms that you just have, and you're talking about interacting with kids,
hmm,
and you'd see them do something and say, "Oh my gosh!" That
yeah,
that look of
yeah,
just fascination, and what they brought to you is, that instantly sparked a level of
yeah,
creativity in them, and they see, "Oh, this person got something from me." And at 5 years
absolutely.
old, you can change someone's
Yes.
life that way.
Absolutely, you can at 5 years old, just by seeing and hearing and learning something from them. Um, and I also want to bring that back to disabilities we were talking about, though. One of the things about dyslexics is that they're really able to think out of the box.
Mm.
Um, and yes, there is no sugarcoating that everyone with disabilities has to learn to adapt to this society, our human cultures, our society as it is right now. But it's also true that evolution works. We've gotten where we are now by diversity. And just as in a crop, you don't want a monocrop, you want as much diversity as you can, because when that blight hits, and that, that there are ways for that crop to survive, for that grain or the corn to survive. And it wouldn't happen if there wasn't that diversity. So we're providing a service. All of those learning disabilities, yes, we have to adapt because we are the minority in this culture, but we bring great gifts, and you can never tell, such as this pandemic is one such instance when people with some, slightly different genetic makeup will find new ways of doing things or survive better than
Right.
others. And so we are needed.
Absolutely.
We are needed.
Uh, you know, when I think back to times in Bear Canyon, when I first got to know you a little bit, we have all these old fun videos, home videos, right? Of back with our grandparents, Gwen and Barney at the cabin, and in all of our families together. Um, there was so much creativity back then. My dad, as an artist, he I really see that in him. The feelings that you're conveying to the kids in your programs. My dad did that with his students, and they come to me
Mm,
all the time. I'm approached by people that find me trying to seek my dad and say, "Your
really?
your father impacted me in ways that I never appreciated then." But they said
Wow.
he was the parental sort of figure in our lives. He's the person that would listen to us. And a lot of that, we were on the edge of the reservation in Great Falls, and he had a lot of students that um, there were, really difficult challenges with a lot of those families. And they'll seek me out and say, uh, I'm sure life was incredible for you because your father was so creative and so inspiring. I think you and I both know some of that is that that's his job in the classroom. Maybe it didn't translate as much at home. I mean, it certainly did, but I love knowing that that's the legacy that my dad leaves. That as an artist, I'm sure if I asked him, is one of the goals that he'll be the first to tell you all the reasons that he is a failure, right? Just because that's his innate nature. While I believe he's one of the greatest success stories because he left academia at a point that it was stifling him. And we talked about that before the show. He was a teacher and loved teaching kids, but the bureaucracy was one of those things that just it was a handcuff for people that are creative types and or empaths. If you get connected where you're just trying to make a difference in kids, but your soul is sucked dry because you're trying to adhere to the curriculum. But legacy comes up on the show a lot. I ask people, and I'm not Terry Gross, right? This is not NPR. I don't mean to look back and say, at the end of your days, but it's important for me to get that perspective from people because legacy started really coming into my life last few years. I'm interested to know, what is it that my dad would want to be remembered by? And so I ask people a lot of times on the show, at the end of Heidi Larsen's days, as you're looking back and you think about all the experiences you had, what would you want people reflecting about you? How would I'm not necessarily asking about an obituary. I want to know, how would they look back on your contributions?
I would hope, maybe it's just fresh in my mind because we were talking about it, but I would hope that people will have felt seen by me. That's a huge thing. I just want to stop there. To be seen. So many young people and so many adults who just need to be seen, that they're not machines working as part of the system with whatever job they have, whatever, but just be seen as a very, unique and unique person, just their own person. Yeah, I would want to be thought of as someone who helped a window into nature, into help them be amazed at the world around them.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's it's selfless, as you've often been. Your whole family is that way to me. It's one of the things that I really am inspired by. There's mystery behind that, being so selfless. When I ask, you or your mom or your sister, your dad about certain things in their life, they instantly turn back to ask questions of me. Because they don't necessarily want to talk about themselves, and the humility is remarkable, and it really is. It's special. But the fact that you're making that difference with not just your community, but the people that are going to affect this planet down the road. When you get involved with kids like that, what you're doing is planting seeds that they will never forget, right? And I believe that, because I would bet if you went back to 5 or 6, even if you didn't have that one person in your life that made such a difference, but I bet you could think of a couple of experiences that affected you that still model some of the behavior you have today. Can you think about any of those? Like maybe the first time you saw a dinosaur bone, or the first time that I remember the first time I hit the Science Center, when I was younger, and it was like everything in the world had been black and white, and then I saw color.
I don't have experiences like that. I mean, I feel like I was always amazed by nature. I mean, I remember when, we didn't have a TV growing up. We didn't have all those things to distract us. Like we were outside a lot. But I remember also when we were kind of in between jobs and we lived in a tent for a while in the Appalachian Mountains, and I loved it. And I remember just looking at plants and the way that they were created and the way that everything balanced perfectly, and just being amazed at the plant life around me and all the animals. So I don't think that's ever changed. I think it was always in color uh, for me.
Yeah, I love it. You know, who actually had a very similar story like that on my show. I had Stella Parton, Dolly Parton's sister, on the show, who
Wow.
grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, right? And so I talked to her. I didn't ask any questions about Dolly because everyone knows Dolly's story for the most part.
Yeah.
But Stella has over 40 records of her own. She had a record label when she was 17, and her story just hasn't been told so much, right? And yeah, nobody
Oh,
knows that. And she was a beautiful human being who was vibrant and so full of life and positivity. But I said, I'm not going to ask about certain members of your family, but what I expect when I picture the Parton family household, I just picture all of you sitting around this big dinner table full of song, right? Just celebrating, just in gospel, choirs. And she said it was absolutely that way. We had nothing. We did not have a pasta pit in, but we were the richest family on the planet
there you go.
because we were out, finding things in nature that were inspiring, and together we did it together, and that to me was so heartwarming, right? Because I think, gosh, I was envious a little bit of that too. How nice would that be to just be out with siblings and just finding the world together, and really feeling like, oh, we've got this secret. We just found the fountain of youth, or we found this magical well where there's all this inspiration. And it was a beautiful conversation. And when I hear people having that early on, you think those are the kind of people that will never take stuff like this for granted. That if you came from that, everything that you work towards is something you'll appreciate for the most part. I mean, we all maybe overlook things at some point, but
Yeah.
it's good to take perspective and pause and look at some of the people that don't quite have that.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I would love to know that not only does Ideahatch get funding and you're able to um, thrive. I mean, you talked about having some staff. I think that's a big part of it. You can't wear all the hats and do everything and not have some things fall through the cracks. And so, wouldn't it be nice to have a series of people that had the passion that you do
And the
and
diversity,
the diversity for sure.
so that kids can connect with them more and see themselves represented. That's top.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love that. So 22, man, we've got a new year to start in, and it's all positive, from here on out.
Yeah.
Even with whatever's going on in the pandemic, I love that there's creativity out there on your side. You and Jason both are able to get out and find ways to make this still a place for kids to hatch ideas and find creative sides of themselves that they would not get if they're head deep in their phones, and so I applaud you, and I admire and respect the hell out of you. I think you're amazing.
Likewise, right back at you.
I well, hopefully I can see some of these programs in person. I would love to.
Oh,
Like I'm just a big kid, so I want to jump on the music bench
yeah,
and see the music maker program. And
absolutely.
if if we can make these alignments happen, I'd love. Do
Yeah.
you have any programs right now in local community there in Olympia that people could go see it? Not right now.
No, during the
Okay.
pandemic, I've mostly just been doing things with boys and girls clubs. Don't have been doing a series of STEM videos for library centers, libraries. Um, but that's not it's not the hands-on. So
Yeah.
I'm just ready to get back
I
and
bet.
do hands-on again. There's nothing like
No,
actually just playing. just playing and seeing
Yeah.
what happens.
There's a class.
Music.
Yeah. When it's not there, it's a real difficult time for me. There's a bump to my spirit. But I had a classmate in high school from Bozeman who's now known as the science guy in
Oh yeah.
Paul Anderson, and he's got millions of followers on YouTube, and a lot of the science teachers I know use him as a curriculum. So
Oh,
I
I
was
want to go. I want to check him out.
incredible. Yeah, the funny thing was that my kids brought home, their science projects, and they was looking through the instructions to go to this YouTube channel, and I walked in and I saw Nolan watching my classmate, and I said, "Wait a minute, what's up with him?" And he said, "Oh, that guy's huge. He's one of the biggest. He's like a big YouTuber." And I thought, "Wait a minute." So yeah, he was like the Bill Nye of my generation, and I think it's cool. I think it's great that that people can still get excited about science in a way that inspires them. It doesn't feel like
And
mundane.
STEAM. So Ideahatch is STEAM. So there is science, technology, engineering, but there's also art, because what you're part of, you learn, you discover, but then you need to express. You need to pass it on. And that's whether it's music, so art and is always part of every program. There's words, there's language, there's making, with paints made of minerals and all kinds of things that, so it's not just science, it's
Yeah,
also art and
I
expressing what you learn.
I love that. I think had we had those opportunities when we were younger, it'd be interesting to see how differently we might turn out. But it's all part of our journey, and
It is. It's
the
all
the
part of the journey.
the youth
What
of
was
America.
your What was Paul? What was he like when he was your classmate way back in the day?
I would not have
Was
picked
he a
that.
science geek then?
He might have been, but I was I was so focused on rock and roll that I didn't catch that. I know that we skied together. He was a big skier and an avid skier, and that's what I wanted to do before
Oh,
playing music. I wanted to be, an Olympic skier. I didn't even necessarily need Olympics. I just wanted to be up on the mountain, But
yeah.
you were just up on the mountain yesterday. You had that cabin, which looked
Yes.
amazing. You had deer in your neighborhood, and
Not very near, and we were gonna ski up at Paradise, but of course there was so much snow. A foot of snow fell just the night we were there, so we couldn't. The gates were closed, but we found other places to ski around. Yeah. So you are going to like Bridger Bowl and like where were you skiing? No, Sky. No.
Big
What is
Sky.
it? Big Sky. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was that where you were?
Bridger Bowl was where I was at, but
Okay.
I would ditch school in high school, and as soon as I could drive, yeah, I was driving up to Bridger, and I would go ski. And Big Sky, I would do because I was playing a lot of nights in high school up there at the mountain, and so
Oh.
I'd play rock shows, and they'd give us passes. And so if I could get up earlier, right outside of school, I'd go ski until it was showtime. Then I'd pack up my stuff and drive back home and get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night and go up and do it again the next day. So yeah,
I can see that.
it's
And
crazy.
our grandfather, Baba, I mean, he was part of creating Bridger Bowl,
Yeah,
right?
he was indeed. Yeah, there's a book out there about it. Um, Cold Smoke, I think is what they call it. I have a copy of that out there. So yeah, Barney Rankin, man, there's a lot of amazing history about that guy. But
Yeah.
I, yeah, we've got such an interesting family. Think about Ward and June Cleaver was never part of our family makeup by any means, right? So I did you get a chance to spend some time during the holidays with Kima and Paul?
Yeah, I did. I was just, this reminds me of, yeah, I did see them. And then I was just talking about the last time I Skyped with him, just yesterday, I think I was Skyping with him. And I don't know why this comes up in my mind, but we have some Native American on our side through Gwen.
Yeah.
And I had met someone working in the library world who knew Gwen and Barney when they were out on Bainbridge Island, and who we were in the same library system, and we found out that they had been friends with Gwen and Barney, and said, why was Gwen, was she had this darkness, her skin was this color, was she Italian, was she Spanish, was she, all these exotic things? And I was like, no, she was, had some Iroquois in her, didn't you know that? And so somehow this came up in conversation with Kima, and Kima
Okay.
said, like, no, Gwen didn't tell anyone that, she
Right.
like kept them guessing.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
possible, so that everyone imagined all these possible,
That-
mysterious backgrounds and lives, which she did have a lot of mysterious
She
backgrounds in
did.
life.
Dude, what was the deal with the monkey? Do you remember the monkey that she had?
I have never seen the monkey. I've only heard that she had, was it on Bainbridge Island? She
Yeah.
apparently had a pet monkey that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how about this? Have you ever heard that she smoked a pipe for a
I did
while?
not. No.
Where did I get that? So I always picture her with a pipe and a monkey on her shoulder. But maybe, I don't know where he got that with a pipe. Maybe I saw a picture of her once with a pipe in her mouth.
I'm not surprised. I could see it. I really could. It may have been a peace pipe, like just a traditional, like the monkey. I thought I remembered it from our childhood.
You remember, you saw the monkey?
I thought I remembered it from the 70s, like when we were, 8 or 9 years old. But yeah, just
because I never saw the monkey. Wow. So I've heard that the monkey was like really mischievous and
I'm
would
sure
just like throw all the plates down, and
that was me.
Oh,
Yeah, that was not the monkey.
you were the monkey.
I was, yeah. The reason Gwen probably got rid of the monkey is like we already have one in the family.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
I was mischievous for sure, but amazing memories. The Bear Canyon. I mean, sorry, the Bainbridge Island home.
Yeah.
Barney's wall of travel with the push pins was something that I now have in my other room here. It's about 20 feet long, 10 feet tall.
I'm going to start one.
I would imagine yours is so fun and creative. There's a lot of open space of places that I want to hit.
I want to see yours because the places that you've been. Okay, I'm going to go see your map.
Please do. Yeah, it's starting to peel and curl. I don't know how like Barney had such a great adhesive on his, but because those are still there, the push pins, and a lot of the string has died right between the travels. But yeah, I got a lot of push pins.
I think they're all still there. Kima's been careful to keep all the.
I noticed the last time I was there, some of them have just broken because the thread. Well, the thread dies. It's like 50 years old, right?
I'm going up on Friday. I'll check into it and
make
sure that it's.
What a magical place! It really is. That I think I have a lot of reverence for that home and memories there. Just the beach is so special. That Bear Canyon, the Brackenwood Lane beach is something else. But
also, though, the cabin in Bear Canyon that they lived in and that you lived in, I mean, the amazing, huge fireplace with all the like semi-precious stones and mica glinting, and that they had that place set up from all their travels. So they would have, I remember regularly they'd have Moroccan tea in the afternoon and put on all and there'd be the Moroccan pillows, and they had, Grammy grew wild mint all along to make the tea out of, and the cabin filled with artifacts from all over the world, and they were that strange mixture of world travelers on a real, I mean, just living out of vans and living out of camping and just going all kinds of places, but also kind of like mountain people, kind of rough mountain people.
Sure. Yeah. You just made me remember something. Hang on one sec here. Okay. Let's see. I have these machetes. Boy, this one's actually really rusty. But these were from the Philippines when Barney. Let's see. I don't know if you can see them. There are these depictions, compliments of What does it say? This penal colony in 1945 is when he was presented this. There are these depictions of different sort of modes through the war, and he was given them by the Queen of the Philippines after he left. So I've got these 2 machetes and his saber that he had with his uniform, and those were primarily a lot of what was that remained. I've got his medals up here on the wall, and
Wow.
but the fact that he would go from that decorated war hero to traveling the world in his Vanagon and exploring all of the world, the community that they developed, I would imagine that you could put together just a whole series of books on the people that they connected with and impacted. And what an amazing bunch of chapters, from Gwen being a school teacher, in North Dakota, to Barney's living out of a tent at Lewis and Clark Caverns, right, and building that whole area there. Yeah, we've got a fun screenplay to work on, So you could come up with a whole new system for your Ideahatch that revolves around, the past Larsen Rankin,
True.
So
That's true. And it would have STEAM, it would have art in it, and technology and
submarines,
engineering, and all.
yeah, the sub company that was. I just found an article on that, on the submarine company that Barney started, and
Found an article on it?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that. It talks about.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, the 2-man sub company that they started. So
because Paul found on Bainbridge Island, he found the blueprints for the sub.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, but we're gonna have to.
And he remembers visiting and seeing a demonstration of the sub, on Bainbridge Island.
Okay.
There was a crowd there, and Barney demonstrated his sub.
Man, my dad talks about that a lot, being down in Santa Cruz and going out to Catalina Island, when they.
I didn't know that. They took the sub down there?
Yeah, in fact, I think that's where they were manufacturing a bunch of their, the prototypes was in that area. And so then he took them out to Catalina, and my dad's job was to try and sell these big companies on it. And my dad said,
not a good match.
No, he said, sales and my dad are not one and the same. So, but yeah, a lot of chapters in their books, so it in all of our books, right? It's kind of nice to have, different phases of life, but these are the kind of conversations that we need to have over a cup of tea underneath that beautiful tree in your home, and or out in a kayak out in the Sound, seeking orcas. Okay.
So come again soon.
Yeah, I would love it.
Okay.
In the meantime, please give my best to Jason. Tell him I really appreciate making this happen. Folks, if you're still watching this or you're catching this later on, go back to the beginning, find out where this inspiration came from for Heidi to put together Ideahatch. If you've got the interest in bringing that program to your community, hit ideahatchery.org. And if you're a grant writer or you know someone, get some funding behind this wonderful nonprofit. You can write it off and actually impact kids for the rest of your life. So I think it's a beautiful thing. Thank you, sponsors. If you guys would like, because they have a nonprofit, do me a favor, guys. Here, check this out. I'm going to put this little graphic up here. That Venmo, you can donate right here to my Venmo. And everything that comes from this episode, I will make sure that all the money that comes through to this Venmo goes to the Ideahatch.
Woohoo! That would be amazing.
Hopefully, we can get you a couple bucks. It may not make much of a dent, but Bill Gates, if you're watching, get that Venmo card out. All right. So,
thank you, Kevin. That's really kind.
My pleasure. Listen, Happy New Year to you. I'm grateful to have you be the first episode of my year. And folks, if you're taking note, I've got a lot of great ones coming up. I mentioned that Dale Bozio would be a week from tonight. She's a real special person in my life too, and it's going to be a fun one. But many episodes the next few weeks, along with additional sponsors. Additional sponsors and an opportunity to become members of the channel on YouTube, so that you'll get first access to some shows that I have that'll only be released to the members of the channel. Subscribe, hit it up on YouTube, hit the bell, you'll be notified, and go back and look at the archives. So, Heidi Larsen, I love you. I really appreciate your time. Folks, hit ideahatchery.org and make a difference in our program, will you? Happy New Year to you, and enjoy Olympic National Forest, guys. Thanks again. All right. Thank you, hon. I'll talk to you later and give my best to Jason.